of S&J Media Group, or Shenzhen, as you can see here, for those that speak or read Chinese. How many people here speak or read Chinese? Hands up. Excellent, right, good, so you can keep us honest, which is good. So S&J is actually probably representative of this room, okay? So within the, which is interesting, let's see, sorry. Technology, first slide in, and when you do that, we'll just reset. It was all working in the test just before. Okay. Yep, there we go. Excellent, good stuff. So there's my smiling dial at the top there. So S&J Media Group, we set up in Australia nearly 10 years ago. There's probably a representative of this room. So of our company, there's about 40 of us here in Australia, half of us from Australia and New Zealand, where I'm from, and half the company is Chinese. So at least we're multicultural, we've got many people from many different backgrounds, faiths, religions, all that sort of stuff. So here tonight with me, so I'll be doing some of the presentation. Kate's also been taken on from Renee. We've got Lam at the back doing some video for us, which will be going for my training purposes, to teach me how to speak properly, speak in English. And also Tony's going to be zipping around with the camera. We're on the lookout for some talent for some upcoming Weibo camp. No, we're not. Just taking photos for us, same sort of stuff to go into our social media stuff. So how many people here are actively involved in Chinese social media? Okay, good. So because when you come to an event like this, it's hard to sort of, because normally for us, our everyday life is based in advertising agencies or with clients direct, and most of them sort of have a grounding in media, at least really good understanding of social media. So then the journey for us to talk to them about the Chinese platforms isn't too much of a stretch, but a real learning curve for them as well. So tonight, what we'd like to do, because we don't want to take up the whole time just in us talking, is we'll be giving you an overview, but then there'll be plenty of time there for some questions and answers. When dealing in these sort of environments, sometimes the question's not as easy as just that can be answered in a minute or two. So just forgive us if we sort of say, look, that's something we'd have to reconnect with on, because in this environment it's really fluid. When we're dealing with campaigns that are going into mainland China, and even for campaigns that are going on our social media platforms here in Australia, it still has to go through the approval processes, which can take a little bit of time. So let's get into it. From a marketing point of view, mainland China as well as here locally, China is a sleeping lion. As Bonaparte too rightly said, let it sleep, for when she wakes she'll shake the world. We're hearing lots of news about that now. China has become our most important trading partner from a dollar point of view, both imports and exports, which will sort of go across as well. So I'm going to walk around it because I am conscious that I block light. And so I want to sort of share that around the room a little bit, so I'm conscious people are able to see. So what we're going to do here is I'll give you a quick introduction of who S&J is, an overview of the Australian media market, so sort of getting an idea where media has been spending their money, and we're talking about them not just about Chinese platforms, we're talking about social media in general and the internet, the real rapid shift from traditional media to social media. We'll be giving you some insights on the Chinese audience, talk a little bit across some key digital platforms. If you guys want to grab a seat, feel free, move in. Then also, how do we target the Chinese consumer? And then also, at the end, we're going to be talking about some of the future trends and options that you have when dealing both in China as well as here. So let's launch into it. So Australian population forecast, so just as of last week when I updated the slide, we're sitting at 25.4 million. So for those of you who come to China, we're a sort of small town as the whole population goes. But the reason I put this up as well is that a lot of marketing information that you will get or see about Australia comes from the 2016 census. And Australia's changed so much in the last year, let alone in the last 3.5 years. So for us here, we look at Australia as a population just over 25 million. What do we look like? And so you can see by this graphic that by far and wide Australia is made up of mainly either English or English-speaking heritage. China has now grown to being the largest foreign language in Australia, so we're sitting at just 6% of the population at the moment, and that's just with residents, not with the tourists as well. So within Australia, most marketing is aimed in English at Australians, and there's been a minimal amount of investment from marketing managers into what we call ethnic media, and that's across the whole English is not their first language. Okay, so for us at S&J, we really do a lot of work with advertising agencies and large brands. When we were set up 10 years ago, it was based on, MTR out of Hong Kong. They came in their metro trains in Melbourne, and we had an opportunity there where they sort of looked at the business here, and there were some advertising opportunities that weren't being taken up by local suppliers, so we set up the business purely to help them with that. And then we've been on that journey over the last 10 years. We've helped a fair few Chinese companies come and set up and just transition seamlessly into Australia. One of those was Alibaba Group. We helped them with choosing Melbourne over Sydney as far as their head office, and we've become a Taobao partner, so we can help companies go onto their largest e-commerce platform, Tmall. And then through that, it's also given us the opportunity, especially with our relationship with Alibaba, to help them with Youku. That then expanded to us going on to their 50% share in Weibo, and then onwards and up as well with just this year with iQIYI, as well as also the big platform of WeChat. So that's sort of a little bit of where we've grown. In Australia, as of last year, Australia is a $16 billion advertising business. Prior to the last 5 years, that graph that shows you, that graph sort of shows you there that 46% of, so 46 cents in every dollar that's spent on advertising in Australia is spent on the internet. So some sort of digital advertising on the internet. Previously, that 46-50% used to be TV, for the people who, so TV companies have definitely slid down the graph a lot there. So just the free TV is down at 20% as of last year, and the big numbers come when you look at what the market is forecasting over the next few years. We're into 2023 when we're looking at a market of $23 billion. 13 billion of that will be spent on advertising. Now, as I said before, for us as a business, if you look at the Chinese population of Australia sitting at 6%, you can get 6% of that money. It's a pretty good business. We're not going to get 6%, it'd be lovely to get 6%, but that's the whole premise, is that what a market is doing to attract and target some new arrivals, as far as people that are immigrating to Australia, who are coming here and experiencing new brands, new things. So brands in Australia have an opportunity to influence you on your choices as you come into the country. So 57% so 57 cents in every dollar is what they're forecasting is going to be spent on online advertising. Now, what is the makeup within that? The declining traditional media markets, so that is newspapers. How many people here still buy a newspaper? Anyone? Physical copy of a newspaper. Don't get it for free or anything like that. No one? No, you're not. It's pretty representative. It's like price keeps going up, pages keep going down, and get it all online anyway. So in decline over the next few years will be newspapers, radio, magazines. You see in the news a lot of magazines, physical magazines, are closing down. Cinema, it's marginal. It depends if Marvel's put out a new movie or something like that, then it picks up a little bit, they get a few more people onto the cinema seats. And definitely free-to-air TV needs to find a new presence in the marketplace. Holding is out of home, so out of home media is any billboards or tram stops you go past, or the trams or the buses and everything like that. They'll be holding from a percentage point of view. It's actually going to be, and they will talk to you about a growth, because it's going to grow because the market itself grows. Where the real growth is going to be is internet advertising, subscription TV, and interactive games. Gamers here, they just had their first, young kids playing Fortnite, getting $3 million prize money. Is not a bad place to be if you can get in kids who can actually play, get them into it. So overall, the advertising market as a whole, internet advertising is really important, but even within internet advertising, it's like, where's that changing? Where's the money going? And this is across everything. This is not just in English-speaking platforms, it's actually across both here and also in China. So general display advertising, that's those annoying banner ads you see all the time when you're online. Search and directories, our good friends at Google and Facebook get like 40 cents in the dollar of all digital money. So they're making a lot of money at the moment. Classified ads, so that's your Seeks, carsales.com and everything, realestate.com, who are paying for their ad to be displayed. But where the real growth and high double-digit growth is in mobile advertising, looking at 4.2 billion from last year, that was a 34.9% growth in the year before, and also video advertising, which is 26% up on 2017, which is a $1.4 billion market. The growth within those two streams is really what we look at, because that's where the real opportunity is with the Chinese platforms. It's also taps into more of the social media, using influencers, using dynamic content, so it helps you get more connection with the consumer, and it helps you sort of deliver the product in a better way. As I mentioned before, as of this is from 2016-17 financial year, China now represents a $155 billion trading partner, both exports and imports. So it's double the US, so it's double our nearest other trading partner. So people have got to have a strategy when it comes to China and Chinese. And again, looking around the room, I'm sort of sitting there thinking, a lot of you understand that. It's like the big thing for companies here is saying it's not the same. You cannot do it with the same brushes you do it with an Australian audience. You've got to understand the cultural differences. You've got to understand that not only is it trying to, and I'm not saying that you're then suddenly going to be selling goods into China. You can sell your goods here and they will make their way into China if you have the correct social media strategy. If you get the right people making the right decisions and influences for your product or service, that can have an influence into mainland without having to go through the hoops of getting your products approved on the other end. So, just looking at the acceptance of e-commerce. So, the big difference between China and Australia, especially for those people who may have an online presence, the use of computer-based e-commerce. China's number 2 in the world, with 82% of the online community quite comfortable in purchasing online. Australia's sitting at 24th, with only 67% of the online community willing to engage with that. When you go to the mobile platforms, again, China sits at number 2 in the world, 74%. And Australia really drops right back, because there's this sort of feeling in Australia, people they'll trust the computer, but they don't necessarily trust 100% their mobile phone yet, which is interesting. Good growth opportunities, but what you're dealing with there, again, from a marketer's point of view or a company's point of view, if you've got a product that's available online, the Chinese consumers are a lot more willing to engage and accepting of the e-commerce platforms. So it doesn't have to be a bricks and mortar store. You have a lot more comfort level with making purchases online. Jeepers, that just jumped everywhere. That's right, got it. So the Chinese consumer in Australia, so this is where we start just drilling down. So there's 2.5 million Chinese people in Australia. Basically, that's made up of 1.2 million permanent residents, or people residing here full time, 1.3 million tourists each year coming in to the country. Chinese students alone contribute $8.7 billion to the economy of Australia. So there's a huge, the education export is valued at $28 billion once you add all factors in. 526,000 odd Australian residents were born in China. So I'll just give you this gives my voice a little bit of a rest, hopefully, give you a little bit of an overview of what we use in the market to help educate people about the Chinese industry.
Australian businesses are lagging behind in following trends in the Chinese digital market.